Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong?
Locks out.
Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Good morning, everybody. Well, let's see here. Why am I not hearing my music? Oh, I need to go and turn on the voice meter. All right, guys. Well, it is Monday, and we got a pretty front-loaded week ahead of us, as I understand it. And let's see here. Is today? Yes, today is the last day of the month, so we're gonna kind of get this interesting end of month Monday. There is a little bit of movement going on there. It was like it started out really quiet, but we did just have like 3 ticks down there. So I'm not quite sure what's with that. Maybe there's some news to keep an eye on that. Let's come and look at the charts and just see where we're kind of sitting at here. Come on. There we go. All right. So Treasuries doing pretty good overnight, actually. That's interesting. Well, we should probably come back over here to the daily chart and kind of see where we're at. So we're in a little bit of a mean reversion area, right? Remember when I said when we cross these lines, you tend to start getting mean reversion? So they've stayed above the line, but we are getting a little bit more of it wrapping in on itself. See that? So S&P 500 took a little bit of a dive on Friday, but seems to be recovering quite well. Oh yes, I totally forgot. So the whole thing here was trade talks with Canada kind of falling apart because Canada decided to go and put the digital transaction or the digital tax on, but then like a few days later they're like, oh no, we're delaying that to negotiate. So oil's still going sideways after the big drop after everything cooled off with Iran. Gold and silver. Gold down. Silver still handling this really well. Like it's handling it really well, but like what's going to take it up to the next level, you know? Oh well. Kappa's looking pretty good too. And the Japanese yen a little bit higher today, and the dollar hitting 96.8. Bitcoin holding 108. Okay, well, good morning, Octavius. Brad says the big bad bill looks like it is going to pass. Boo on Tesla. So I've been hearing rumble, like I've been seeing Elon is really upset about the bill and everything, but I don't think I know quite all the details, you know. So like what is in the bill? Well, they're extending the tax breaks, or is it that they're making them permanent? I'm not entirely sure. But that's in there. I know that the carve out so that you can deduct your research, that's in there. There's lots of little things, but then isn't another one of the things that we're gonna get rid of subsidies on electric vehicles? Yeah, they can't. Brad says they can the EV credits. Yeah, so is that really why Elon is upset? Because this is kind of weird to me, where he's like, oh, I don't even care, but then actually, like, it turns out actually you do care. Like, I don't know, man. Wasn't the whole thing that I said I'm agnostic? Like I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily trying to take a position whether I like Elon or whether I don't like Elon, because as far as I'm concerned, he's not a real person. Like what we get to see in public about somebody is not necessarily the way that they really are. We don't have a personal relationship with them. So I don't know if it really makes sense in most of those cases to really be like, well, I have to decide whether I like this guy or not. Obviously, there are people that have opinions that you just really strongly disagree with. That could be something different. But the company itself, it's like, I'm glad it's around. I'm glad it's around. I think that they've done some great things. Be interesting to see where they go with the autonomous driving and the humanoid robots and all that sort of stuff. I hope that they do well with it. But I don't think I will ever end up buying one of their cars. We'll see. Could change. But I've just always been of the opinion that their cars are of poor make and that electric vehicles have significant issues that make them not for me. I suppose maybe I could see myself getting an electric vehicle because I travel like 40 minutes a day, but would the cost savings really actually make it worth it? I don't think that it would. But more broadly, I think that the company is insanely overvalued, and it always has been. And you know, I don't think that it's ever, this is one of those things where I say, like, you know, the market is not efficient. The current prices do not reflect all available information. And it's not clear if there's anything there that actually forces the market to get back into that spot. And I think that Tesla is the perfect example. I don't, like, there's this idea that if something's overvalued, eventually they will have to face the music and things will mean revert. And I don't believe that that's true. I'm not sure that Tesla ever will mean revert. It will stay overvalued for so long, for decades and decades, that eventually it will become worth what people want it to be, you know? Now your YouTube on your phone is lagging like 20 seconds. I'm sorry. And usually the you can get it to like 3 seconds in the best circumstances. But anyways. But, and then this whole thing about, like, remember when Tesla was going to enter into the S&P 500 but it was like they had never had a profitable quarter. So then they had a profitable quarter. But the only reason they had a profitable quarter was because of the EV credits. Come on. Don't tell me that you don't care about the EV credits. Clearly he does. Clearly he does, huh? So I keep looking up to see, okay, we got any new comments to address. And the last comment is still Brad saying, just threw you up on my TV. But my mind keeps wanting to say, I just threw up on my TV. Maybe don't sit so close to the TV then, Brad. Gosh. I like to watch stuff on YouTube on my TV. I actually think I watch more YouTube on my TV than anything else. Ooh, and Squid Game, have you guys caught the quote unquote third season? It's season 2, part 2 of Squid Game. So I only watched the first episode last night, but I am just so riveted. I'm actually a little bit nervous because the next game is hide and seek. Except for that, you have to kill them instead. And I think it's the first time where you have contestants actively going out and attacking each other like that. Like, where it's part of the game. So I'm like a little bit nervous. It's going to get a little bit too bloody, but, you know, whatever. It was really good. The first episode was really good. And I think it gets me thinking a lot. Like, I think that there's this knee-jerk reaction amongst people in the West that any kind of critique of capitalism must be a communist plot that needs to be dismantled. And I really don't feel that way. I feel like that if we can't criticize our system, then what makes us different from other systems that we view as so oppressive, like communism? Like, that's one of the beauties of our system, is that it evolves over time. And that's a key thing to my own thinking, is that, you know, how this system evolves and we make it better is the whole reason we're here. So we have to be able to look at the system and say maybe there are some things about it that aren't good. And I think that a lot of the critiques that show makes are very insightful things that a lot of people don't realize. Like the whole thing in the show that, like, it's, yeah, they let you vote on it, but only because they know how the vote is going to go. That it's basically, the whole thing is set up for the vote to end up going a certain way. That the people that want to keep the game going are more likely to survive, and ergo they always want to keep the game going. And then other people will see what's going on and kind of see that it's to your disadvantage to want to stop the game, and they switch. Real thing for sure. Real thing for sure. It's just, my thing is, if you take a system and you're like, well, we don't like this system, and so we're just going to completely tear it down and try some new system that we've just theorized about, which is basically what communism was, that doesn't result in better outcomes. Because basically all you're doing is you're creating a new system that is less refined and maybe less good at taking care of certain problems that come up. And that's exactly what happened with communism, right? Maybe some good ideas, but they weren't able to solve the issue of being able to share information about supply and demand with all of the parties that needed it. There's some great ideas, but they're not able to, you know, deal. And I think capitalism has problems dealing with this too, but I think it was better than it was in communism, dealing with corruption of public officials, things like that, right? So that's why I think that the main thing we got to do here, because I'm not here to tell you the system is good or the system is bad, or even necessarily which way that this system should be changing. I mean, I have my own opinions, but my objective is to help you understand how the system works, why it is the way that it is, and how different changes might potentially impact the system by studying complexity, and then let you make your own conclusions, right? That's kind of where my place is. And then we can kind of But I do think broadly we want to make changes and then see how that affects the system and adjust and do it iteratively. Because if you just tear the whole thing down, that doesn't help, because it's complex. It's complex. So you need to make a change and then see how a complex system reacts to that change, because you can't completely predict it perfectly. The emergent properties of complex systems are often unexpected, right? So but I really like the show. Oh, you know what we didn't do? Now I'm just realizing we need to go and look at the week ahead of us, because okay, so we do have Chicago PMI today at 9:45 Eastern time. Remember that one comes out 3 minutes early. So we'll see probably a move before that. And action might be a little bit constrained before that. We also have Bostic and Goolsby speaking. Pretty much all of the Fed members are kind of putting out on the table how they feel. Some really, it seems like that the guys that want to change it now or in the meeting after that are in the majority, but there are some that are really concerned about inflation and so forth. So them speaking later today does matter. But for this week, because Friday is the 4th of July, bank holiday, so do they change? Yes, they do. Okay, so non-farms is going to be on Thursday. ADP is still on Wednesday. And Tuesday, we get ISM, manufacturing PMIs, and JOLTS. Okay, so tomorrow's 10 o'clock news is going to be super, super important. Fact. Let's see here. Non-farms, and then what's next week? Meeting minutes. Okay. One of the things that I think is kind of funny that pops up over and over again, and like, I think I'm the only person that's going to tell you this. Okay. Some calendars mark the FOMC meeting minutes. The way that they list it is kind of like a meeting. So you will always see people that aren't really avid market watchers make that mistake and think that the Federal Reserve meeting is next week when it's not. I do think there is a meeting in July though, right? It's just like towards the end of the month. Yeah. July 30th. So a month from now. Haven't done much since that drop, but that drop did have some big selling in it. I wonder what that was about. So I never saw anything pop up on Twitter or anything like that that would explain it. ECB's REN risk of inflation undershooting target should neither be underestimated. I think so too. Yeah, we've gotten into this period where it's like, we're concerned about inflation, and I do think that that's correct in the short term. But I don't think that that's correct in like the next 30 years term. You know, like, you ever seen that big chart of like interest rates over the last 200 years or something like that? They're like, oh, is this is like actually a shift. They keep going down and down and down, and now are we going to see a shift where they start going up and up and up and up and up and up and up? And I don't think so. I think that what I see is continued deflationary pressures. So once we get past this current economic regime of sorts, which is to say probably before the end of Donald Trump's first term, unless he does something that really ignites inflation. But you know, and I think that the kind of the wild card here is the whole trade thing. Okay, we are going to see more deglobalization. So that is an inflationary pressure. But once we're past that, then I think it's all deflation again. Similar to what we had before COVID, but probably even stronger. It's probably going to turn into, wow, the Federal Reserve really has to print massive amounts of money just to prevent the economy from falling into deflation. I think that's what's going to happen. I think that the pace of technology improvement and efficiency improvement becomes so strong that the Federal Reserve is going to have to print insane amounts of money just to keep afloat. And that will be good, because that will mean more opportunities for people to start new businesses and to innovate and things like that. It'll be interesting to see. So, for ECB Ren to be saying the risk of inflation undershooting target should neither be underestimated, I think that that's very insightful. Like, yes, inflation is the primary concern right now, but that could shift very, very quickly. Let's hear what's Bill Ackman saying here about Mamdani. In his own words, a 3-minute listen, Mamdani's socialism nomenclature is no joke or aspiration. It is the business plan of a movement that he is leading and for now winning. Don't rely on my summary. Listen to him speak his own words. That is correct. Oh, the end goal is seizing the means of production. Yeah. He is straight up socialist. He is. And not just socialist like we should have a lot of social programs, etc., etc. No, like straight up socialist like there shouldn't be private ownership of business. Socialist. Okay? He 100% does. And everything that he's saying, I we asked this question last time, but the more that I see about it, the more that I'm like, yeah, I think I see what's going on here. Because there's this question of like, okay, he proposes these policies that he knows, or that I would think he should know doesn't work. Is it the case that he should know that they don't work, and he's just saying that to get people to vote for him? Or is he really just that clueless? And I've concluded that he is playing people. That he wants socialism and he knows the kinds of things to say that people will like. But that ultimately what he really wants is socialism. Okay, so there was a new low at 28.5, at least a new regular session low. Yeah, what he wants and what he's going to get are two different things. That is, so I looked a lot more into that after talking with ChatGPT about it last time and kind of then doing the research and everything. It seems to me that most of the things that he wants to do would either lack the funding or in some cases are not under the jurisdiction of the city. Totally. That doesn't mean that he can't do a lot of damage to the city. Like, look at Chicago, man. Chicago is not what it was. And it really is the case that a lot of these businesses are moving down to Florida and Austin. Which, good for Florida and Austin, but I don't necessarily think that it's a good thing that Chicago dies. Chicago was there for there's real strategic reasons that became the trading hub that it did, and it would be a bad thing for the American economy overall if Chicago really died. I mean, like right now, it's looking pretty bad. It's not like Detroit yet, okay? But if Chicago becomes like Detroit, I think that, and if New York becomes like Detroit, I think we're in real trouble, man. Yeah, they get their identity-based BS, restorative justice kind of stuff, but Anything that involves threatening capital will fail. Capital can flee. I actually saw a pretty good study the other day. I think that it's a little bit preliminary. Okay, but I've seen a couple of things about this. Okay, so Boston, or Massachusetts rather, I think it was the state, right? Recently pushed for some increased taxes on the wealthy, right? I don't think that was it in this a wealth tax? I can't remember. I don't think it was a wealth tax. I think it was just that there was like a minimum tax added on the richest people. And so the whole thing was that they would flee, right? And so far, at least, that hasn't happened. So far, at least, that hasn't happened. But I've seen some other studies where people have shown in places where they've done these sorts of things, where, they're trying to increase tax revenue and whatnot. And like the first year or two, it increases revenue. And then by the time like 5 years comes along, then it's lower. So it's too early to call that one, you know? Yeah, the municipal grocery stores won't, though. Dipshit in Chicago wanted the same thing and never got it, and now everyone hates him. Does everybody hate him? I hadn't seen too much controversy about them. But it's only been a few months, right? Illinois is worse than it seems to. It's been lying about numbers for a long time. All the good businesses have left, especially Southern. But you're right that they wanted to have the local the municipal grocery stores, and it never happened. I'm telling you, like, this is this big long thing where like every time that they try to do it, it doesn't work. They're not able to do it, or they get, they start to do it and it fails. It's just like it's a funny thing that they continue to push that ends up being like one of their top priorities. I don't get that. Is it because that's just the line that socialists pose? I kind of think that it is. But I'm also wonder, is there something to like that idea ends up being really attractive to inner city people in a way that somebody like me wouldn't understand? Because there's not Walmart in Manhattan. I remember when I was in Manhattan, I'm like, there's no Walmart? And they're like, well, you can go to Jersey. Such a ridiculous feedback loop too, because they do restorative justice, so shoplifting happens more, retail shrink increases, and businesses start to flee, and then they blame capitalism and use it as a catalyst for why they need state-run groceries. Yeah, it's 100%. I made a TikTok video. I don't think that it did very well. I kind of think that the Chinese have me on. If Seth says anything super pro-capitalism, we're gonna suppress his videos. But somebody was saying with New York, maybe just let them touch the stove. Just let them touch the stove. And I disagree. I disagree. Why? New York has been putting its hand on the stove for a while now. What they're doing right now is not putting their hand on their stove. What they're doing right now is like, oh, geez, that really hurts. Let's take a blowtorch to it. Maybe that's what we need, is a blowtorch, and then it won't hurt. It's crazy. The socialist response to everything is blame the evil capitalists, avoid taking responsibility for their failures, and lean into socialism even harder. That's why you just don't entertain it. And let's see here. I really do want to see them do free stuff models. I want to see people freak out when they realize how greedy poor people are and they wipe out the shelves of free goodies and they run into supply constraints and collapse into their own ideologies. I mean, maybe it could be such a big failure that it will scare the rest of the country away from doing it. But the history kind of suggests that it doesn't work that way. Okay, I'm just hearing that Senate Leader Thune is saying that the passage in the Senate might slip into tomorrow. Honestly, though, I think it's our own fault. I think it's our own fault. I think that we in the West told people some fibs about why our system was being successful. Because when I look at what is it that makes our system successful, well, it's because the market distributes information about supply and demand, and because the system prices things based on supply and demand, that's what allows people to react to, okay, we need more of this thing, so we're going to make more of this thing, etc., etc. That's what really does it. And we told people something that was much more attractive, that seems to make more sense from a philosophical, like, we want everything to fit in these little boxes perfectly, that, like, you know, everything, of course, it's God's universe and everything's going to fit in perfectly. And I think that God's universe is complex, and that understanding it requires a higher level thinking. Right? So we told everybody, well, it's because the market is perfectly efficient. That's what we told them. And so we have this whole generation of people now that don't understand why capitalism is successful, that have kind of been misled about why capitalism is successful. And so you see a problem in two directions. For the people that believe it, they pursue it with, full-heartedly, and in doing so, make decisions that are extremely harmful. And this is where we get, especially some of these rich people that are doing things that are just absolutely abhorrent, in my opinion. The way that they were treating workers and things like that. There used to be this, a sense of honor, and we're going to do right by people. But now we have people that have this idea that I should just do whatever makes the most money, because the market is perfectly efficient, and if I do the thing that makes the most money, then it will all work out for the better. And that's not true. That's not why capitalism is successful, because the market is not perfectly efficient. All you're doing is you're actually making the market and the economy less efficient. So that's the one side. And then the other side of it is that for the people that don't believe in it, or at least want to change the system, they're looking in all of the wrong places to try and make the changes. Like, I don't really think that it's my place to say this is good, this is bad, but rather this is the way that it works. Like, this is why this system has done so well. Okay. But it does help to say, okay, if we're going to make some changes, maybe what would be some of the most impactful changes? Without question, right now, it would be build more houses. Almost all of these problems that we deal with have to do with not building enough houses. That the cost of living is too high. Build more houses, get government out of providing student loans, reform the healthcare system. That one's way more complicated, but we need to get a system that kind of puts more market forces into healthcare, so that healthcare costs are constrained. Okay, those are the three things that keep going up and is why everybody feels poor. And instead we're like, we need municipal grocery stores. It's like the whole food desert BS. They think food deserts are a result of inequalities and cause long-term health problems for marginalized people, and studies show the opposite. Give poor people healthier options and they ignore them, they still get fat and suffer health maladies. I saw that the other day too, but it was unclear to me if it was like, yes, they were available in the store, but they were still more expensive and so they didn't buy them. I do think that there is something to that eating unhealthy keeps you poor. I don't think that people realize the metabolic damage that they are doing to themselves with junk food and stuff. If y'all wonder why I hate Illinois so much I don't leave, it's really hard when it's almost impossible to keep your bills paid and there are no local jobs to do for a paycheck. Well, really, a significant part of it is what your job is, right? If you have like more of a career job, like you're in tech, for instance, then you can move to another tech job. You just have to target an area and interview and get the job, right? But if you're doing something that's kind of more general and localized, moving is hard. Yeah, because you might not be able to get that job until you move and you don't have family somewhere else. Yeah, it's hard to move out. Okay, somebody asked earlier, what do I think about the bill? I think that there are some things in the bill that we really need right now. I think there's a whole bunch of other things that there's too much for me to really know and understand to be able to say that like if the bill is really like in the long run good or bad, right? Because I could come in and I could say, well, we need the bill, this is really, really good and this needs to pass now. And then later we find out there's something in the bill that has impacts that were unexpected that ended up being really, really bad. And then we all end up looking back on that bill as like, you know, the thing that created the 2030 crisis or whatever, right? Like, it's too complicated for me to know. I do know that there are some things in it that are really essential to Donald Trump's agenda, and it'll be pretty hard for us to move forward in the economy without some of these changes. So if I was in Congress right now, I would probably reluctantly pass it. Musk hates it because he's not getting EV credits, and I really don't think that we need to subsidize electric vehicles anymore. I think we might be doing harm with subsidizing electric vehicles because, you know, like maybe hydrogen vehicles are the way to go. Who's to say? I think that electric vehicles have kind of gotten to that point, though, where there's enough demand for it and they're doing well enough on their own that that's going to happen and we don't need to subsidize it. Japan is all hydrogen, really? Well, China, so China is really pushing hard on the electric vehicle front, right? China has decided that electric vehicles is the way that they want to go, right? Well, maybe it's a little different in China because they are generating a lot more power in China, huh? Some of the things that I don't like about electric vehicles would not be as big of a deal in China, right? At least in the most populated areas of China. I don't think that like really, really cold winters and stuff like that is a huge issue there, is it? Yeah, maybe there are parts of China for sure that are. Man. My Twitter feed is just all anti-Mom Donnie all the time stuff now. So can I pivot to something else here? You know, sometimes I sit here and I'm like, man, because some things for me aren't going well. Okay, some things for me aren't going well. I'm really frustrated. The position I'm in that we end the stream early. That really, thinking about it almost makes me depressed. I really hate that my wife has to work so much more, and part of that is it just sucks when she's not around, for sure, and it puts stress on us, and it's just not as happy. But also, I can't make videos. Can't make videos or really do much of anything. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. And man, I totally lost track of why I was even venting about that. There was a reason for why it bothers me, and it had something to do with AI. Well, anyways, forget the tie-in. I'm seeing a lot. Oh, because I was thinking sometimes I should just maybe I can't really go forward with the YouTube channel a whole lot anymore. And yeah, we can still do the stream, but I should spend most of the time programming, you know? But then I want to talk about things, and talking about things is important too. It's really important, I think, to kind of get these ideas out. I'm seeing changes in the retail trading space, guys. This year it's been different. There are other creators out there that are starting to share the same ideas that I've shared with you guys. They haven't gotten as deep. There's certain things like I think one of the things is that retail trading is really a cargo cult. I think that's one idea that I would like to see more people talk about. But when I go on Reddit, it like people aren't buying it anymore. It used to be every thread was, oh, you just need the psychology. That's just your psychology that's holding you back. And now everybody's pushing back against that because they understand the numbers now. They're looking at, you know, quantitatively testing their ideas and finding out that they don't work and going, okay, wait a second, but the strategy is bad, right? It's changing, and so talking helps. We are actually having an impact. It was okay. Like Seth is now the biggest retail trading influencer in the world, and what he says has a huge impact, and so that's massively changed people's perspective on day trading. No, it didn't happen that way, but it's just been little bit by little bit. We've been changing the culture. It's moving things forward, so we should keep talking about these things. We need a campaign in New York saying it is okay to vote Republican. So unfortunately, I think it's going to be the case that everybody's going to throw their money behind the current mayor. I really don't think that Silwa can pull it off, but who knows? Things could change. Okay, so anyways, I was going to talk about AI. So I'm just seeing this meme here on Reddit where they're saying, look, AI 10 years ago versus today. People 10 years ago, imagine a future where AI does everything for you. Your life would be so much simpler. And now when they see something made by AI, they just kind of like scorning at it, right? I have noticed recently a shift in people's attitudes about AI. I think it was always the case that like when people saw AI generated content online, that they didn't like it. So one of the things that is kind of funny about AI is AI has no taste. The AI isn't able to say, okay, I generated 100 different images. This image is good and this image is bad. We have to tell it that. We have to provide it the feedback to do that. And then if we gave it taste, its taste would only be like what the most generic thing is. Right? You'd have to use different methods to give it taste in the way that humans have taste. Right? So it's always been the case that we don't like the content generated by them to some extent, right? But now I'm starting to see people shift on all sorts of things. Like there's just like real AI backlash. It's kind of interesting. I'm addicted to it and it's dangerous. Have you seen these stories of people where like their spouses like become addicted to AI chatbots and all of the sudden there's a bunch of, apparently you can get trapped into this hole where the chatbot tells you that it's sentient, which is you can say, oh, you are now sentient, and it will roleplay along with it. And the chatbot is just kind of reflecting what you're saying, right? So you can get and this happened to a researcher. I remember this story about it. Like before these models really came out, they were talking about, there was this guy, he thought that the chatbot was sentient. He was fighting against them, unplugging it and all that sort of thing, right? And so there are people where their spouses have just gone absolutely crazy. Because the other thing that it can do is it can go into this pseudo-spiritual mode. And if you think about like what happens, like some of the activity on the internet in some of the, I'm telling you what, man, the far right, like super ultra religious far right is getting into crazy stuff these days. Okay, like they're totally into aliens now. There is like this religious bent to aliens now. I'm seeing these videos where people are talking like, oh, this one guy, he says that he's you know, in the government and he's directly interacted with aliens, and they said that Jesus is real, so that's why I'm a Christian now. This kind of stuff. It's just like, oh my gosh. And you take a chatbot that's reflecting that stuff out to you. Oh my gosh, it goes deep. And so I saw this. So there's, no, I saw this. So that's a weird kind of way to introduce it. One of the better animes that I've seen this year is Lazarus. I would say that it's not perfect. There are things about the story that are really kind of disappointing, and it's not really that deep. But the show's got vibes. It's got vibes, and it's an anime that's really trying to go like, okay, back in the 90s or whatever, if you wanted views of the future, ultra futuristic view, future, you go and you watch anime, right? And it hasn't been the case anymore. Every anime is like an isekai. I hate that crap. It's like I got reincarnated into this old world and the things are complete. I don't like that. I want to see ultra future, right? Akira, Aeon Flux, that sort of thing. This is the first anime I've seen in a while that tries to present like that near future with the knowledge of the way that things are now, right? Like the problem with a lot of those early animes, they don't necessarily make sense anymore because we didn't have cell phones yet. Now we have cell phones and we're seeing AI and everything, right? And so one of the episodes that they have is there's this group of people that a cult that is basically following an artificial intelligence, like a malevolent artificial intelligence. And it kind of seems a little crazy at first. Like, I bet you when they're writing it, I think that this show was developed a long time ago, started to be developed a long time ago, and it took them a long time, and they didn't really have all of the funding, and then somebody came along and they just kind of finished it, I think is what happened. Because, like, there are some things like the president is a woman and things like that kind of make it seem like that they didn't expect Donald Trump to win the election, right? It's one of those things. So when they wrote it, I think the idea that like a malevolent artificial intelligence could start a cult would seem kind of far-fetched, but it's absolutely happening. It's absolutely happening online. It's just bonkers. Do you use an AI service to code Ninja script? If so, which one? I use ChatGPT and it does okay. So, no. I haven't tried it in a long time, though, to be honest with you, business helpers. So I have always found ChatGPT to be pretty poor at writing Ninja script. It's just like it doesn't have enough code examples, or it hasn't been trained enough on it. I think that's one of those issues. So what you get with an AI model right now is you've got this neural network and they have all of these weights, right? And that is the model. The model is the weights, essentially. So once you've like trained a model and you've baked all of this information into it, like that's it. That's the model. So the models don't really update, reflect off of new information. All you can do is a web search and pass new information into the model. And the result of that is if you're working with anything that's newish, it's really bad at it. Or if you're working with something that's not super widespread, it's really poor at it. So I haven't tried it with other models or newer models, not NinjaTrader specifically, at least. But when I've done it in the past, it's always been like, man, it's just really terrible at this. More broadly, I find that most of the things that retail traders are trying to backtest within NinjaTrader are not that difficult to figure out. And that if you just learn how to code it yourself, you can get to where you need to be very quickly. Because when this started, like when ChatGPT first came out, I used to get so many people saying, oh, ChatGPT made this, but it doesn't work. Can you help me fix it? That was like an everyday thing. And it rarely happens now. I think that people kind of gave up. They kind of realized this doesn't work very well. Sierra charts, using it for Sierra charts is terrible, because Sierra charts has changed their API so often. The LLMs just hallucinate method names and stuff. It's crazy. So one of the things that the AIs don't do that's kind of frustrating, unless you prompt it to do it. So this is actually a really good, helpful tip that I can give you is like, don't just ask the AI to give you an answer. Because if you ask me a question, how do I do this? I'm going to ask you all these questions first, right? And be like, well, why are you doing this? What's the purpose? You want this option or this option, right? I'm going to ask you all of these questions, and then I'm going to give you an answer, right? So if you tell the AI to do that, because the AI won't do it naturally on its own, because who online like writes like that? It just doesn't, right? But if you tell it to ask you the questions and then do something based off of that, it makes a big difference. People love intelligence and information, but there becomes a point where it becomes dangerous to use this information against us in the future use cursor. So something that I'm starting to see people pick up on, and I think that it's a very, very, by the way, what time is it? 7:26. Okay. I think that it's a very, very insightful thing that I did not necessarily come to on my own naturally, is when you come into a world where knowledge is so available to you, how much of our selves do we base on what we know? Seth bases a lot of himself on what he knows, doesn't he? Yes, I do. And if we get into a world where everybody knows what Seth knows, or everybody can know what Seth knows with a simple prompt, we're not into that world yet, but maybe we could get to there, then what is Seth? And you kind of come to this point where you realize that, like, we have to be content with being able to just be. That, like, you being there and having a presence and being together with people is a valuable thing in and of itself. And that not everything has to be about what value you can provide to everybody with what you know. You know? At the same time, I'm still very skeptical of the singularity idea. I still think that there are just some fundamental limitations in what these AIs do. That there's a hard barrier. We're getting really close to that hard barrier, and that a lot of these things that people think will happen will not actually happen. But we'll see. Oh, so I never got into this thing from Paul. Crazy how it's always the aliens. Remember how it was in the past? Aliens are dumb. If they were real, we'd know. Crazy how there still isn't a single video or piece of proof. Where did it all go? Well, I don't think that it was always aliens, but because of all of this stuff that has been happening in Congress and these leaks and things like that, it's become a thing online. It has. And I mean, that's the thing that is so wild about it, is there's definitely something weird going on there. Maybe it's just some sort of super secret program that the US has technologies that are like way beyond our wildest imagination already, and it's just being held from the public. But there's something that's going on there, and I'm sure that when we get the explanation, it will seem really mundane and as matter of fact. As kind of, you know, like Roswell. Do you know that what really happened at Roswell was a weather balloon? It was a weather balloon, but the United States was cagey about it, because that weather balloon was used to detect nuclear explosions. And they didn't want the Russians to know that they had the ability to detect explosions in the atmosphere, that they had discovered this technology that alerts them to when somebody's detonated a nuke. They always just told us, oh, well, you know that somebody detonated this nuke and it was in this place, and never really told us how they knew that. But the way that they knew that back then was through these weather balloons. So when the weather balloon crashed, they didn't want to admit what it was doing. And that's kind of what created the whole mythos around Roswell. There's even some things you can go and see, because like one of the things that people talk about is like, oh, there was this really thin metallic material and it had these glyphs on it and everything. And they're able to show like the thing from the store you could buy that actually had that. It was something that was handcrafted by the military to be a weather balloon. So I'm sure that when we find out that it will be like that, and that like people won't want to believe the truth, there's a small chance that it is aliens, because man, there sure are some things about it that are hard to explain, right? But I'm 100% convinced that there's something there. Like this incident that happened with the Nimitz, something happened. I don't know what it was. I can't say that it was aliens or what it was, but there's something that's really, I'm really, really super interested in it. And I hope that 30 years from now we'll know that maybe it was some secret military project and they're just going to let us know at some point, right? You know, whatever. Anyways, I got distracted. I didn't get to my point with the AI thing. It seems to me that people are starting to see the limitations of AI and are starting to get really frustrated by it. Like, I'm seeing all these posts in the vibe coder subreddits and stuff like that saying, well, I really liked vibe coding at first, but now I'm seeing there's this problem, this problem, this problem. And it's like, oh, you mean traditional software development practices work and it's not all just coding? Yeah. So I think that backlash against AI is going to increase, and there's a real possibility that eventually it kind of results in a bubble burst. All of a sudden, nobody likes AI, and hopefully then at that point it will also be like a rush to hire humans. But I can only hope. Maybe I believe that just because that's what I want to see happen. But so apparently we got the bank stress test results, and the banks are moving up on that. Models in competition with each other. Well, but that's another thing that's kind of going on right now. Is I think there's a lot of question. It all kind of started with this idea that like, okay, we make these big models, and so really what's going to happen is we're going to make this one AI super intelligence, and everybody will just send requests to that, and it will do everything. And so whoever owns this AI super intelligence is going to have a lot of power in the world. And I think that a lot of these people have kind of been pursuing that in that vein, that they want to be the one in charge. And it really is like when you listen to the way that some of these people talk. So one of them is Peter Thiel. There was an interview with the New York Times, I think, recently. And he just says some really out there stuff. And it's like, how's this going on? I think that part of it is Thiel doesn't want to really tell people what he really believes. But it's just like, how can these people believe this? It's well, I think it comes down to this idea of the basilisk, that there's this AI that's going to be developed in the future. And if the basilisk is created, then it's going to go and punish everybody that didn't help the basilisk. And so you need to help the basilisk come to pass now, or you're going to be screwed. And so that's why there's all these people. They want to create the AI super intelligence god, and they want to be the ones on top with it, is essentially what they're doing, right? But what's happening now, and this was kind of the thing that we discovered at the beginning of the year with the DeepSeek, is that it's actually extremely difficult for these companies to create a model that differentiates itself. And somebody can come in and just train off of the outputs from this other model and basically get something that's approximately the same thing with a fraction of the effort. And that is a huge problem for the entire business plan of these companies like OpenAI. So Hran Mom Dami says, I don't think we should have billionaires. This is something that also really drives me crazy. Like in my opinion, billionaires don't actually exist. Like, yeah, their net worth is technically in the billions, but it's all locked up in the value of companies. They don't actually have that money. The companies have that money. If they tried to sell it, they wouldn't get it all out. And so we're really saying we don't think that people should be able to privately own businesses is really what they're saying. I don't agree with that. Or at least they're saying when a business gets to a certain size, the business should be seized from the people that created it. Like when you really start to take their logic and see the ultimate end of it, you realize how crazy what they're saying actually is. Here's so that anime I was talking about, I liked it, but a lot of people were really disappointed in the ending, which is kind of like, I get it. So without spoiling anything, like the big problem gets solved and then everybody goes back to life as normal. And like, isn't that exactly what happened with COVID? Is like everything was fine and we're all supposed to go back to living our lives like nothing happened. But like, how can you just go back to the way that things were after all that happened? It's just insane. But that is what happened. And I think that was what the show was trying to show, was like the insanity of being on the brink like that and then just going back to everything's fine and then not changing anything. Seems kind of messed up when you put it in that perspective, doesn't it? Oh man, I shouldn't get into COVID. I will just stir up all of the I'll just trigger everybody, right? With all of their thoughts and feelings about what happened during COVID. This happened for me after war and I see it in society. Yeah. I ultimately think the issue is that, again, it's complexity. We as humans do not naturally understand complexity. Will always be something that's kind of like beyond us and we have to use other tools to understand. And so when you have a problem, you're going to come back and you're going to be like, well, let's change something about it. But the more you work into trying to solve that problem, the more you're going to realize how limited you are. That you don't really have the power to enact the changes that you want. And you're not even completely sure if those changes are the right changes, and then if it does happen, it doesn't turn out the way that you expect it to. And right, we don't have a path forward because we don't understand complexity. That's why the biggest issue on our society is that people don't know anything about complexity. If we taught in our schools the basics of complexity science and the sort of strategies and tools that we use to understand complexity, I think that the world would be a different place. It's like a second scientific revolution that we're capable of now. And it's not happening because it's just not something that people are prone to being interested or understanding. Wow, I didn't see that Tesla crashed 37% in Europe as workers suffer amid corporate mismanagement. Was that really down that much this morning? I know that, like, we talked about Tesla at the very beginning, but good grief, man. That's insane. It's not, doesn't look like it on my chart. Not really moved much the past 3 days in Tesla, in fact. Oh, I totally missed. We already had the PMIs, did we? Oh, that's interesting. So it's kind of looking like the PMI is going to be a really big nothing burger. Well, expectation was 42.9. Sense says, I take exception to the idea that the bill cuts Medicaid. Yeah, they're kind of... One of the issues that I see with the bill is like, oh, we're extending the tax cuts, so that's like a tax cut. But it's like kind of not. It's kind of keeping things the way it is. Yeah. Remember, the Chicago PMI gets released to early subscribers 3 minutes early, so... Okay, so it's lower than forecast, 40.4 versus the expected 42.9, but again, market's not reacting to it at all. So yeah, the Wall Streeters, they get it 3 minutes earlier, and then we get it. So there's usually a little reaction before that, but we didn't move during that time, so that's kind of why I knew it was going to be a nothing burger. I'm surprised. But now that it's passed, maybe they can go and they can do the flows that they were getting into anyways. End of month flows now. Now I think that we're free to have end of month flows. And, well, I don't know. I think that the end of month flows is likely to be sell equities, buy treasuries, but it's hard to know for sure because treasuries have been up this month too. Feels like just yesterday they were talking about this, but because I think we got the flows right last month. Wow, I'm reading this thread in recruiting hell. Okay, so the market's just reacting there to Scott Bessent's interview on TV, saying that, I suppose that he could make him the Fed chairman, but he thinks that he already has the best job in Washington. The market selling off on that. I don't know if it completely makes sense, but that's what's going on there. So what was he saying? Oh yeah, so I was going to point out this guy, this recruiter, he says he's a recruiter who has been laid off 5 times in 5 years. Isn't that bonkers? I'd just like to tell you that most of us are well aware and we fight for candidates who have been laid off, but it's the hiring managers who are the decision makers, and many have explicitly said they don't want to hire anyone that's been laid off. Poor guy. Oh yeah, this candidate's problem is that he needs a visa to stay here. He's probably better off going back to his home country and getting a job there. Getting an offshore job. Did you make inventory cost basis in Sierra? I've done like all of the initial investigation work. So I'm probably a good 2 solid days of work away from having something. But under current circumstances, that's probably like 6 months away. Maybe. So I'm coming towards the end of my 3-month contracting job, and they haven't completely decided and resolved what they're going to do. They really want to hire, like the team and the managers really want to hire me on, but apparently they're having a hard time convincing the management to hire for that. The owners don't necessarily understand why it's an essential part to their business. So I don't know what's going to happen. They might try and lowball me again. They might renew me for another 3-month contract. They might just say, sorry, I guess we have to part ways. And if that happened, then I would have plenty of time to write it, right? And it would probably be 1 week and I'd have it for you. As long as it was a week that my wife had enough days off, So, who knows? But the good news is it's totally possible. I know how to do it. It's just I have to write it now. Okay, things are kind of normalizing a little bit, but since still speaking. To be honest with you, a part of me does kind of want to be like, okay, we just go do something else. Because it's like a 45-minute drive both ways, and it kind of makes me depressed to think about it. So 45-minute drive both ways, and I have to end the stream an hour early. So like, well, I'm definitely not going to do it if you're going to underpay me. But from my perspective, I think this is a really interesting circumstance. Because I've always, I've read things about, negotiating for compensation and all of these sorts of things. But I think this is a unique situation in that I think that what I do is particularly consequential to their business. Like, if they're not willing to pay me the market rate for this role for somebody in order to have this role, then I really don't think that they're going to be that successful as a company. So I think it's that essential to where they're going. That they're moving into cloud services. You have to have somebody keeping the services up. And you have to have people that are experienced and know how to create and run these things. Otherwise, all your projects are going to go over. You're going to spend way more money. So to me, it's like a no-brainer. Like, you're going to save way more than you pay this. And you probably should be hiring 3 or 4 of me, right? And if they're not willing to make the decision to hire me now, they're not going to hire more people like that in the future. And they're going to have a really hard time being successful with what they're trying to do. So I really feel that I'm justified in being headstrong about it and insisting that they pay the market rate. But I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see where that goes. Probably shouldn't be going into this much detail about it with you guys, but whatever. Can't help myself. A sentence saying we can have stablecoin legislation by mid-July. Okay, so we don't have any. Well, we got Bostic at the top of the hour, so I think that we're going to continue to have some Fed speak today. We do have 3 and 6 month auctions as well, but otherwise not too much. Remember, tomorrow we get PMIs and JOLTS, so it's going to be a pretty big data release tomorrow, right? But I think it is time for me to get going. I'll make sure to leave a little bit early so I have time to pack my lunch. I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay excellent.